Scanning for audio.
Welcome once again to the Tin Dog Podcast. This week's show is dedicated to Edward McGregor. Thanks for donating, for keeping the Tin Dog Podcast running. This time I'll be talking about Waters of Mars, one of this year's specials, and also about sjsa35, Mona Lisa's Revenge, which sounds like a bad cocktail, but more about that later. I would now officially like to be the first podcast to use this piece of music before reviewing the show.
Can't be stopped. Don't die with us.
Listen the best-selling show. It's their life on
What's going to see?
Captain Adelaide Brooke. A woman with starlight in her soul.
I suspect we'll all be using a nice bit of Bowie at some point, and it's hardly a crime. And the answer to the question posed in the song, is there life on Mars? The answer is quite definitely yes. Yes, there is. And what a curious story this is. Almost universally liked. On every forum and every text I've received. I do feel that this story has a certain one-off quality. It's telling a story that can only truly be told the once. And narratively speaking, it's a very brave piece of construction. The pacing for this story is an odd creature. It gallops along, and then when it decides to stop and pause, it takes time out to stop and pause. Rather than going up, building to a crescendo and coming down again, this thing's all over the place. It starts on a downer and goes downhill. That's emotionally speaking. Not enjoyment speaking, of course. We know it's going to end badly, but we know this within the first 3 minutes. And we don't mind. The whole business about the Doctor electing not to change history has been a major debate of the new series, but not of the old, for some time. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The Martian base itself looked glorious. The whole episode does. The annoying robot is even described as an annoying robot, except for the fact that it's not actually a robot.
Doctor.
Gadget.
I hate robots, did I say?
Yeah, and he's not too fond of you. What's wrong with robots?
It's not the robots, it's the people. Dressing them up and giving them silly voices, like you're reducing them.
Yeah, a friend of mine, she made her domestic robot look like a dog.
Oh, well, dogs. That's different.
Aren't robots self-controlling? It's more of, well, a Waldo, a machine controlled by someone. It's basically a glorified remote control car, apart from at the very end, when it trundles out of the TARDIS, completely uncontrolled by anyone, and then switches itself off. I am very glad it's been left in the street, and isn't hanging around the TARDIS in order to become some future Big Finish spin-off series of its own. Gadget discovers.
Gadget.
One thing that I did neglect to talk about, and rather obviously I should have been discussing it from the start, is that the Ice Warriors aren't in this story. Now, we've already established, thanks to the gift of the Key to Time audio, that the Ice Warriors weren't always warriors, but here we're presented with a slightly different take on the Ice Warrior creation story. The Ice Warriors don't appear here at all, so it's really not worth going into, despite the fact that they're hinted at that they might have frozen the original entity in ice in the first place. It's also interesting to note, although not that interesting, that the mouths of the water creatures do bear a remarkable resemblance to the mouths of the Ice Warriors themselves. It's nice that they got a mention, in passing twice, just enough to keep us old school fans happy, but not enough to distract from what was going on, crashing on.
Gadget.
50 years in the future might seem a little immediate for a Martian colony to begin, and this is where some of the flaws in the story begin to rear their head. Small things like, stylistically speaking, the Wikipedia entries that seem to be up on the screen, telling the audience that everybody dies that day. Now, just skipping to the end, the fact that the captain's body is found on Earth rather than on Mars doesn't seem to affect anything. They are the first people off Earth to live on Mars, and on the same day that they're supposed to die on Mars, the body's discovered on Earth. And it's announced to the world. Does this mean that the Doctor's actually hardwired into Wikipedia? Now, that's a storyline I'd rather not discuss. But more importantly, every time one of those pages appeared, a car door slammed somewhere. What was all that about? We get it. After the first one, we got it. We didn't need one after every single person, literally hammering the point home. My other, smaller, pointless issue with the story was the Dalek at the window. Was it just me, or did he appear to be travelling at an extremely wonky angle? Now, the Dalek Invasion of Earth 2009, or whenever it was meant to be, 2008. I'm sure the stories are meant to be set immediately in some strange parallel future. Hadn't actually happened in the Dalek timeline, and therefore in the Doctor's timeline either. So was she always destined to be the first person on Mars but have different motivation? Was her granddaughter always destined to be the first person to break the light barrier from Earth? Or had facts changed even before this story, thanks to the ever-meddlesome Doctor? Of course, such things only matter if you think about them too much, but sadly we're Doctor Who fans, and that's what we do. We do think about these things too much. Of course, I am, indeed, skirting round the main issue. You see, I refer, my learned colleagues, to this, a sample from the 2005 story, Father's Day.
When it's me saving my dad.
I know what I'm doing, you don't. 2 sets of us being there made that a vulnerable point.
But he's alive!
My entire planet died. My whole family. Do you think it never occurred to me to go back and save them?
But it's not like I've changed history. Not much. I mean, he's never going to be a world leader. He's not going to start World War III or anything.
Rose, there's a man alive in the world who wasn't alive before. An ordinary man. That's the most important thing in creation. The whole world's different because he's alive.
What, would you rather him dead?
I'm not saying
No,
that.
I get it.
Now compare that with Tennant's speech about the little people. For a start, shouldn't the Reapers turn up? Or would they only have turned up if she hadn't have killed herself? The guy should be aware of stuff that even we know about. Or has he killed all the Reapers off, the chronivores or whatever they're called, in order to provide, well, a slightly better storyline? He can't change history, for lots of reasons. One of which is, the world will come to an end anyway. They seem to have, rather majestically, just skirted around that. Getting back to the basic plot, it starts off as a classic, very, very classic Doctor Who story. The base under siege. It's something we've seen time and time again. From the Moon Base, the Ice Warriors, Horror Fang Rock, in fact time and time again, it's a recurring theme. Small cast, cheap to hire, trying to fend off an external villain. It's midnight. It's lots and lots of other examples. I could be here all day listing them and talking about them, and no doubt at some point I will. And that's kind of what's needed in order to tell the larger story, the narrative that ends at Christmas, with the 2-part End of Time storyline.
Every night, Doctor, we have bad dreams.
But I was told, he will knock 4 times.
Because a shadow is falling over creation. Something vast is stirring in the dark.
I'm going to die.
My name is the Master. The darkness heralds only one thing. The end of time itself.
The story of the meddlesome Doctor. And the Doctor is truly meddlesome. Annoyingly so. Now I know Doctor Who isn't real, but bear with me for just a moment. The original Doctor, the first one, turns up on Skaro. He's never, ever heard of the Daleks. Now the reason for this is, from an audience point of view, is that the series had just been existing for 4 weeks. No. In the larger narrative, the first Doctor left Gallifrey, possibly with a weapon, Possibly not, to hide it on Earth in 1963. Who was he hiding it from, if he didn't even know the Daleks existed? He travels to Skaro, and because of his actions there, and following actions, he's created a massive causal loop. He's brought about the Daleks leaving Skaro. He's brought about the end of Gallifrey. He's brought about the incident at the window, where the Dalek encourages the woman to go to Mars. All of these things are caused because of the Doctor's meddling, time and time again. He is the cause. He is the monster. Because he's trying to bumble through, trying to fix things, and he just makes things worse. He's actually a load of chaos, if anything. His actions have built and snowballed, so much so that his greatest villain is himself. There is some superb acting from Tennant in this. You're not going to get away from that. But as he walked off into the sunset, and the rather unflattering light was shining on his eyes from that helmet, I was thinking, excellent, he's doing the right thing. Oh, hang on, there's still 15 minutes left. I'm guessing he might go back and save them. Donna is right. He needs someone to stop him. But perhaps from a writer's point of view, he needs a companion to bounce off. Either way, the companionless Doctor is an odd creature. Now, apart from Christmas, we have yet another Doctor Alone story to look forward to. Now, whether you count it as belonging to the major story arcs or anything like that, that's up to you. But it starts on Saturday, and it's Dreamland.
Reports have come in of a recent unauthorized entry to the top-secret base known as Area 51.
Howdy there, partners!
A person of unknown origin. The only name he would give us was...
I'm the Doctor, by the way.
The Doctor.
Take me to your leader.
I've heard all kinds of things about that place. None of it's good.
Look out! Dreamland? Oh, I've always wanted to go there.
Doctor Who, Dreamland. From Saturday on Red Button. Another dimension of Doctor Who.
It has the same flying saucer scene in Sarah Jane Smith, because it's set on Roswell, the actual Dreamland. It's available in the UK via the Red Button, but I'm sure if you're outside the UK, you'll get it somehow and at some point. It is, however, I must warn you, completely animated. And animated using a computer that seems to bear a strong resemblance to a ZX Spectrum. We're used to completely higher quality work than this. But who can I talk? I quite like the Flash animation we saw last year. And so I'll leave the waters of Mars and let you listen to the entire David Bowie track that they use in The Confidential, complete with samples, before I move on to Sarah Jane Smith.
It's a god-awful small affair. You're Captain Adelaide Brooke! The girl with the mousy hair. But her mummy is yelling no. And her daddy has told her to go.
Doctor, with me.
But her friend is nowhere to be seen.
Maggie,
now she walks through her sunken dream to the seat with the clearest view. And she's hooked to the silver screen. But the film is a sad thing for she's lived it 10 times or more. She could spit in the eyes of fools.
Listen to me! I went down.
Focus on sailors fighting in the dance hall. Oh man, look at those cavemen go.
Why should I trust you?
Because I give you my word.
Don't be ridiculous.
Take a look at the low man beating up the wrong guy. Oh man, wonder if you'll ever know.
It can't be stopped. Don't die with us.
Who's in the best-selling show? Is their life on
What's going to save you?
Captain Adelaide Brooke. A woman with starlight in her soul. This base on Mars. With you, Adelaide Brooke. This is one vital moment. What happens here must always happen.
Sarah Jane Smith's series so far has been exceptionally high quality. You simply can't deny that. The acting has been of much higher standard. The storylines have been well thought out and well structured. There had to be something perceived by many people as a bit of a clunker, and as far as I'm concerned, that's what this episode is. Mona Lisa's Revenge goes against, almost, City of Death. The problem is that City of Death's storyline has 7 Mona Lisas in it. One of which, the surviving one that's returned to the Louvre at the end of the story, has the words "This is a fake" inscribed in felt pen on the canvas that's been painted over. Now perhaps, and I have given this some thought, because you just know I would. Picture the scene. The original Mona Lisa is painted. Count Scorleone orders another 6. Da Vinci is out of paint. Then he goes next door and borrows the paint from his insane neighbour. This allows him to finish off the other 6 for Count Scorleone. In between, the doctor has turned up and written "This is a fake" underneath the 6 canvases, or indeed bits of wood, if you want to be historically accurate. The Mona Lisa in this story is, of course, about twice the size of the real thing. But it's not until this demon-impregnated, one of the 6 copies, comes to life and is played rather appallingly by someone from Coronation Street with the world's oddest accent, that things truly begin to fall apart. The guy from Frontos who's in this gives a decent performance, but it does have the feeling of a comedy episode. A comedy episode without laughs. Here's the trailer.
Prepare to meet the Mona Lisa.
The Mona Lisa has been stolen!
This is the Mona Lisa.
But it can't be.
When I act like a real teenager, you want me to be perfect again. The way the Bane made me.
It's weird enough for Sarah Jane. We should call her.
No, don't need her. We can do this ourselves. What is that?
That is my brother.
Sarah Jane! Mom!
And that is how she'll stay forever.
And before I go, as has become traditional, I will read a couple of Whostrologies. I'd like to thank absolutely everyone who's taken this opportunity to buy some more Whostrologies. Thanks to that, the Tin Dog podcast should be able to continue for some time. If you'd like a Whostrology certificate, simply visit eBay, type in Whostrology, and purchase one. And if you'd like one before Christmas, the sooner the better. Here is a reading for Tony Galashon, host of the Flashing Blade podcast. Tony Galashon, born on the 19th of November, 1967. You were born in the time of the Second Doctor, with Jamie and Victoria in your first house. Stories shown on your birthday. You were born during the Ice Warriors, and on the anniversary of Power of the Daleks Part 3 and Image of the Fendal Part 4. You'll share your birthday with William Russell, Nicholas Pennell, and Adele Silva. Your Whostrology. Tall, whispering men enter your life for the first time. Be sure it's global cooling, not warming, that you should be worried about. Red and green are often seen, but usually in black and white. Installing new cables for a client will cause nothing but trouble. Why not dump all your problems into the heart of a handy supernova? A golden woman may not be the answer. Building on a rift is seldom a good idea. Happy birthday, Tony. In next week's show, when I'll be discussing Dalek, as well as the end of Sarah Jane, and the latest instalment of Tom Baker's Hornet series. So until then, be seeing you. You have been listening to the Tin Dog Podcast. Doctor Who and its associated shows are all trademark of the BBC. No infringement is intended. Contact us at tin-dog@hotmail.co.uk.